Hello, this is Calvin Corey from Pixelarius Studios. Today we'll go over basic texturing in Blender to create a postal package just like this one, and I'll show you how to apply a quick texture image to a model in Blender and then go into greater depth about working with UV mapping for greater control of precision. I'll also show you how to apply I'll show you how to apply bump mapping layers for 3D effects such as the wrapping folds that you see on the side and the crumpled paper effect. And so let's get started. To begin, I'm going to go ahead and open up Blender, and I'm going to keep the default cube. And if you take a look at real packages, you can see that there's really no such thing as a package that has perfect 90-degree angles all the way around. The paper is usually a little rounded on the corners. And so for our package, I'm going to go ahead and apply a modifier. I'm going to apply a Bevel Modifier. Okay. And here you can see it's given us nicer edges, but they're still kind of squarey, kind of angular. And so we're going to add segments to sort of round it out. I'm going to try 2 segments, and then I'm going to come over here on the left and choose smooth shading, and that looks decent right there for me. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, good deal. Actually, I think I added 3 segments in there. I wonder what happens if I do 2. Yeah, it's alright. It's not bad. Okay, I'll keep it at 2. Great. Now, texturing is basically you're telling Blender that you want to cover the faces of your model with a 2-dimensional image. In some cases, you want to wrap it around. In some cases, you want to just have the image cover certain parts of the model. And but there's really 2 ways to do texturing in Blender. And so the first method I'm going to go over is what I would call the quick and dirty method. It's quick because it's fast, but it's dirty because you don't get much control over how and where the image appears on your model. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure my object is selected. And then over here on the right, we have to create a material for this object. Textures are applied to materials on your object. And so we need to have a material in order for the texture to be applied. And so it already has a material. Looks like it's got the default material there. I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. I'll just call it wrapping paper. Alright. By the way, while I'm here, by default, materials in Blender have a certain amount of specular properties to them, which means the more specular you have, the more light is going to be reflected off your image back at you, and so it's going to make it look shiny. And the hardness determines how sort of glossy it is. Now, paper, like wrapping paper, postal paper, is very not glossy. It's actually very flat, and so I'm going to move the hardness way down here to, like, I don't know, maybe like 7 or 6 or something like that, and then the intensity, I'm going to bring that way down as well, because usually with postal packages, you don't really get a lot of light reflected off them. You can see some light here, but it's not like you're looking at chrome or something like that, where it's just pretty much going to zap the beam right into your eye by reflecting it off and back at you. So, all right, next I'm going to go to the Textures tab next to Materials, and there is a texture layer there already, and so I want to, for the type of texture layer, I want it to be an image or movie. I like to take a look at both things here, but that's not really necessary. I click on that because it shows me both the texture and what it might look like applied on the model. And then I'm going to open a new a texture layer here. And the one that I'm going to choose is, it's package paper 1. Okay, so it's going to apply this package paper to my model. And if I did a test render right now, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to hit F12 so you can take a look at this. Looks like we need some more lights. Hold on one moment. I'm going to duplicate the light and just kind of move it on over here. Oops. I'm going to press 0 on my number pad to give me the view, and then I'm going to mess with my view a little bit. Just I want to get nice and close up to this camera. So I'm locking the camera to my motions so I can just make it nice and easy. Alright. That's alright. Alright, F12. Let's take a look. Okay, so the quick and dirty method basically tells Blender, just take that image and just wrap it around that box. And so, I mean, that's all right. It's just a square, right? Or a cube. It's just a cube. We're just trying to put a texture on it, some wrapping paper. But there are some issues with it. You can see that on the top, the paper looks pretty good. But here on the sides of the box, all of a sudden it looks like a waterfall. It looks like it's excuse me, being stretched out. And so we need to fix that. F11 to get back to the 3D view. Select the box. And the texture isn't showing up. I don't know why. There it is. Okay. So in order to make sure that the texture appears around the box in the correct manner, we've got to look at the mapping. We've got to tell, even with this quick and dirty method, we can have some control over how the image appears on our box. And so for the coordinates, generated should be fine. It means the generated coordinates. There's other options in here, such as the object's, its orientation or its orientation, its coordinates. And so you can play around with those sometimes to get different effects. But generally, if you just stick with the generated, it's a good option. But what I'm going to do is change the projection and tell it, hey, this is a cube. So when you wrap this image on there, make sure that you kind of wrap it flat all the way around and don't try to stretch it or do anything goofy with it. So if I hit F12, you can see that it went ahead and did that. It wrapped the image around evenly on all sides. Alright, so not bad. I'm not too impressed with the lighting situation here, so give me just a second. Okay, sorry about that. Paused for a second to take a little time to get the lights looking a little better. I didn't want to waste your time with that. But here's our test render. Okay, so quick and dirty. Apply a texture to a box. That would work really great if it was like a sugar cube or something like that, where the texture really is supposed to be the same all the way around. But in this case, that's not what we want. We are trying to make a package, and that means there's going to be different little things all over the package. And so I can't just throw a paper texture on there and have it look believable.